Let's start with the Captain Trouba trade. Steve, I want your take overall.
My deal with Trouba, and listen, you go back and I didn't think this was something that was going to get done. But looking at it, this is something that I think had to be addressed. And I think Jury did a great job with this, getting the Ducks to take on the cap and the Rangers not taking any bit of a hit. I thought it was great, and the Ducks, they're not ready to be a playoff team. They're not going to be a playoff team. Chuba's not going to get them any closer over the next year and a half. And that alone makes this a head scratcher. Not only that, but the Ducks, remaining the contract, what are they doing with this? So, what are they thinking? What's the plan here? I don't know. Who cares? But moving forward, I think this was great from jury side, but it kind of gives you the question like, jury didn't, and we see this clearly now that jury left a lot of these tea leaves, as you want to call them. He left a lot of these tea leaves open on the table, and he didn't address a lot of these problems. And I think, this kind of goes to the overarching, thing in Rangers land right now, where these problems that the Rangers had last year, and I think maybe last year you could call it an outlier. Last year was such an overperformance, and the Metro was so weak last year. This year, the Metro is much, much deeper, and you're seeing that the Rangers are having a much harder time copy and pasting that formula from last year and into this year. And I think Jacob Trouba, in terms of the long run, great move. It's unfortunate that we have that reputation of trading away our captains. I mean, we could stem back to the conversation of who should have got the C a couple of years ago, but there's no point in doing that. But this year is for me, and as a fan, we're fans. This was Sam's last year. He deserves so much more than he's getting right now. I feel so bad for him. These games that he has to call. I mean, he's calling, JV high school games the way we're playing right now. But I mean, great move in the long term. Short term, though, I struggle with what this team is so broken defensively right now. And I think it depends what your goal is. I'm gonna be honest with you. I am having the hardest time deciphering what the direction this front office, who's driving and where is the driver taking us right now? Because
Yes.
trading Truba away, that's more of a long-term move. But you look in the short term, defensively, we're so broken. And if you want to say, you know what, this is our last year before we blow it up, keeping Truba would have made sense. So I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. So actually, I want to pitch in kind of. I love I love devil's advocate between you and I, and everything I've heard is that the Ducks their room isn't great right now, and they saw an opportunity to pick up a a player that was a captain in the NHL, who's physical, who plays well enough defensively and definitely above the level that their players are playing at. They have a lot of young defenders, and there are a few defensemen that, can Mintyukov play 82 games in a season? And now these are questions personally, I don't watch them every night. But you look at their back end and Trouba fits. It's not like it's pushing out Lane Hudson, a potential Calder defender, or, like an Adam Fox in 1920, where it was like, oh, he's really good. You're pushing out a player that probably could use AHL minutes or probably could play as a seventh defenseman on an NHL roster, and one, frankly, that's in the bottom five of the league. So I see why the move is a move that's helping keep the organization kind of moving in the right direction. You pick up a leader, a physical player who can play steady NHL minutes on the back end and it has the experience. Now, granted, from our point of view, it's a little bit different, but from their point of view, that's what they're looking at. It's the fact that they took the whole cap. That's a master move. Now, again, this goes back to the summer, and we're going to talk about kind of the tampering in a moment because Larry Brooks shed a lot of light on this, and some reports from LeBron at a TSN as well with the whole Brady Kachuk thing. We're going to get there, but with that, this all kind of started in the summer with Barkley Goodrow and how that was handled, and he had no shame. Like I never really talked to Goodrow. He was not a guy that was an open locker room guy that was always talking. He really specifically stated to San Jose reporters that he was not happy with how that was handled, which That's a statement from a player that doesn't speak a lot. On top of that, then there was the Trouba situation, right? The whole trade block thing. We saw that interview with Kaplan during the Penguins game. Overall, I think it's a move right now that Chris Drury did not sign that contract. And I think he took a lot of heat for not finding a way to move it, and he found a way to move the entire cap. And what I think Jacob Trouba turns into is a defenseman that, if he plays well enough, he had a lot of interest around the league. Let's be for real. They eat half that salary and they trade him and they get some draft stock at the trade deadline. Jacob Trouba is a player that you could play at $4 million on your third pairing if you're, I don't know if he'd go back to Winnipeg. Maybe if Detroit is in the running, they're not right now. Uh, Frankly, a team, I know it's crazy. Columbus was in the conversation, and Columbus isn't playing terribly. They're towards the lower half of the Eastern Conference. Point being, there are teams that would have interest that could contend, and I think that's where he ends up. So again, I loved how you wrapped up Drew's approach to it, and obviously that led to the next move that the Rangers made in quick, almost rapid succession. It felt like one day to the next, but I want to make sure you don't have any final thoughts on Trouba.
No, I agree. I agree with everything you just had to say.